I know what you're thinking. It seems very early to be talking about Battlefield 2018, but in all honesty, the game is actually pretty close. I mean, it's about, what, a year from now? It's September 2017 already, somehow. Nobody really quite knows how the year manages to move this quickly, but we anticipate the next Battlefield to come out in around October, November 2018, and that realistically means there's only a year left of development and other things for the game to do before it actually releases. So today I wanted to talk about what we've learned so far from Battlefield 1. It's been a very different title in the Battlefield franchise, and it's prompted us some new learning curves. Battlefield 4 was mostly learning about how the game was broken and should have been fixed, and there were so many problems, and Frostbite should be this, that, and the other. And Battlefield Hardline was more learning about the franchise and what direction it should be heading in. But we now finally have a Battlefield which is closer to the franchise at its core, and isn't necessarily broken on any specific scale, so there's lots of things that we've learnt about the actual core dynamics of Battlefield as a franchise, and key parts of the game that have been significantly different to what we've learned in previous iterations. So today I want to go over the top 5 things we have learned from Battlefield 1 for the next Battlefield in 2018. So number 1 is time to kill. I think we've come to learn now, as a result of previous Battlefield titles including Battlefield Hardline and Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3, that everybody prefers a faster time to kill. Everybody likes it when players die more quickly and don't have 100% of the time to react. In Battlefield 1 we were stuck with a relatively bullet sponge situation where ultimately you could sink a number of rounds into people before they'd even consider dropping, and it got frustrating, it got kind of tedious, and people preferred what was closer to Battlefield 4. Now the CTE update that's recently rebalanced all of the weapons available in Battlefield 1 and upgraded their minimum and maximum damages means that Battlefield 1 is more or less heading closer to Battlefield 4 in terms of time to kill, which is probably a preference for the vast majority of players. As such, whatever time era Battlefield 5 is set in, or Battlefield 2018 so to speak, has to kind of match this time to kill, be it with World War II weapons, Vietnam weapons, 1970s, Cold War, wherever the hell we're going to end up. We need guns that match the time to kill to Battlefield 4, and we need a gunplay system that suits the faster time to kill dynamic. I've always said that it's never really seemed to make sense that Battlefield 1 had a faster movement system, slower firing weapons, and ultimately a slower time to kill. It didn't really make a lot of sense considering the first two factors, being faster movement and slower firing weapons, already resulted in a slower time to kill naturally, without the time to kill being lowered intentionally by design in terms of weapon damage. So hopefully we'll see something in Battlefield 2018 that resembles a Battlefield 4-esque time to kill, or something that suits it along that lines. Number 2 is thematic DLC. This is so good to see back in Battlefield 1. We loved it in Battlefield 3. I think everybody could admit things like Close Quarters and Aftermath were some of the best DLCs ever released in a Battlefield franchise as a whole. And Battlefield 1 has done really well in my opinion with the first 2 DLCs. I wasn't a huge fan of They Shall Not Pass, but even the simple things like having new tanks, new vehicles, French armies, having different uniforms and different battlefields freshened the game up so well for me. And I think In the Name of the Tsar has been brilliant because it's included the civil war in Russia as well as the actual Russian conflicts on the Eastern Front. It's given us a whole new array of maps in lots of different locations and lots of different weather settings, given us new armies with new uniforms and new weapons as well, and even new vehicles. There's just so much going on with these themes that I feel as though it's freshening up Battlefield 1 with each iteration. And I can only hope that the continuation of these themed DLCs, which appears to be the case in the final 2 that are coming, are just equally as interesting. You know, it adds a whole new layer of interest to the game when there's something entirely different going on in the DLC. You know, when we first had those earthquakes in Battlefield 3, everybody was like, holy shit, this is really cool. When we first got the Russian army in Battlefield 1, everybody was like, whoa, Russians, this is great, you know, like, it's really cool. It's nice to have these little things, you know, and sometimes it's the smaller minor details that really make a difference. In Battlefield 3, it was more about thematic map design. In Battlefield 1, it's more about thematic everything. It is great. I love it. I think they should carry on to it. Just don't stop. Never stop this. Just keep it in Battlefield 2018, and whatever Battlefield you make in like 2020 or 2019, just keep going. Grab this and run, because it's so good for the game, and it's really healthy. And I think it's something that should stay for a very long time. The third thing we've learned from Battlefield 1 is that you can teach an old franchise new tricks, or an old dog new tricks, so to speak. I feel as though everybody, whenever they talk about Battlefield, they go, hey, Conquest, Rush. Conquest, Rush. Oh, Battlefield, Conquest, Rush. Nobody ever talks about anything else happening in the game. It's just like, oh, so you want to play Battlefield? Well, this is Conquest. It's really big. You shoot people. There's lots of vehicles and stuff. Or they play Rush. It's like, oh, this is Rush. There's MCOMs. You blow them up. People fight over them sometimes. You know, sometimes there's a vehicle involved. Sometimes it's mostly just infantry. And that's as far as the conversation extends whenever you talk about Battlefield. It's kind of frustrating because you're just like, but what about these other modes? What about, you know, what does this do? And everybody's just like, yeah, I don't care. It's not Conquest. But for once, that's changed. The meta of the game has changed. Operations is fantastic. Operations is so much cooler than anything they've ever done before. I think it's better than Conquest in some instances. I think when you have a balanced operations map that has great layouts, great weapons, great balancing, everything's just well tuned and perfectly lined up for a good match, I feel like that absolutely steps on Conquest and says, who are you? You know, like, you know, you're just this old shadow of a thing we used to do. And I really do hope Operations stays for a very long time in the franchise. Another surprising mode that hit me as well was the DLC mode Frontlines. I thought that was nice. I quite enjoyed Frontlines. I feel like it's a mode that people actually still play, and in fact, people play it so much that they've even introduced it to some base game maps. Keep doing that. Frontlines is awesome. I think it's a great mode. I think it's an evolution of Chainlink and Conquest thrown together in a really nice package, and I think that should carry on in the next Battlefield franchise as well. So let's keep that going. Let's keep these new tricks that we've taught Battlefield that was previously, oh hey look, Conquest Rush. Let's make it Conquest Rush Operations Frontlines. Whoa, you know, like that could be so much more expansive and more interesting for people coming to the franchise. The next thing for me is number 4, and this is, we need a complete launch. And this seems to be something that seems to happen every time we release a Battlefield. It's a little bit frustrating. In Battlefield 4, we had just mostly broken things. Like, just nothing worked. Like, the game was just fundamentally flawed. There was netcode problems, there were server problems, there were these problems, there were that problems. Battlefield Hardline had a very stable launch in comparison. It was really interesting. It was great. It was like, oh, wow, these guys at Visceral really know what they're doing. And Dice LA, hey, thumbs up to you guys too. And it was great. I love that. It was really good. Unfortunately, Hardline didn't turn out to be the game most people wanted, but it added that sort of layer of stability that we hadn't seen before. And then in Battlefield 1, we got this really wholesome, very complete launch, you know? Everything kind of worked as we expected. There was no real major netcode issues. There were no major problems for us to dwell on. We didn't have to talk about how Battlefield 1 needed fixing. We needed to talk about how Battlefield 1 could get better. And that was a nice change of rhetoric to have, being able to talk about a game improving as opposed to it being broken and this is what we need to change, and then talk about it improving, which is kind of what happened with Battlefield 4. The only major letdown to all of this is that there were certain things that would have been really great to have there from the get-go. And the big one for that is RSP. They brought RSP in-house for the first time, and I think that's a positive move. There were lots of problems that we found, especially in the end of the Battlefield 4 lifecycle, that have been plaguing RSP by outsourcing. But in order to bring RSP in-house, it needs to all be there at launch. We need private servers. We need servers that allow clans to run lots of different fun and wacky modes, because that's how communities in Battlefield evolve, play together, and have a good time. And all of that should have been there from the get-go. And RSP features as a whole were still somewhat lacking in Battlefield 1, when realistically they should have been there from the launch date. And at the same time, things like clans, clan tags, that was such a simple thing that kind of disappeared. Platoons just sort of got thrown out the game, and then it got thrown back into the game at a very later date, but it was all kind of late. It was a little bit, it was kind of like too late, too little, I feel like it's the phrase people would probably use for it. And it's really nice to have it now, and I think it's great that it's there, and nobody's, underestimating how much of a positive move it is to have Platoons and RSP implemented into Battlefield 1. But now that we've ironed out the problems of Battlefield 4 and we have stable launches, and now that we've got this really great game we can talk about, let's just make sure things like RSP and the whole side of integration is there from the start of the very game. Now, I want to put a little caveat in this point, because it seems to me that Battlefield 1 is doing this sort of in-house integration, holy crap, what the hell is going on thing. And if you notice the tab on the left-hand side of your screen whenever you launch the game, you can now swap between different Battlefield titles, you can swap between platoon statistics, you can swap between server browsers, you can, everything is there. It's all integrated into one big thing. And I feel like that's the groundwork that they're building for the next Battlefield. So when we actually get to Battlefield 2018, it's just going to be a game that we go onto that tab, oh look, Battlefield 2018, Battlefield 5. It already has the server browser, it already has platoons, it already has competitive stuff, because it's all been integrated and therefore could be easily transferred over. And I feel like this is a growing pain as a result of that. This is something Battlefield 1 has sort of had to suffer through, so Battlefield next year can be even better. But it's a really positive idea, and I think it's going in a really great direction. So, whilst we have had to kind of suffer with a lack of RSP in this game, next game, hopefully it's going to be fantastic. The next final thing is number 5, and this is the 5th thing we've learned about Battlefield 1. Now everybody talks to me about, hey, you know, why did Battlefield 1's content take so long? You know, like, we had They Shall Not Pass, and there was a huge wait for the In the Name of the Tsar DLC. And it did do a little bit of damage to the game in terms of player count. People lost interest in it. I personally did lose a lot of interest in it after waiting so long. And something we realized, that Battlefield players and people who play Battlefield expect a lot of content. And they expect it to come every couple of months to keep the game fresh and original. They expect a Battlefield 4 style DLC release pattern where things come quickly and successively and keep us interested. And as a result of that, Premium will continue to exist. We have learned from Battlefield 1 that Premium just simply has to stay. There is no way we can simply ask for a Battlefield 4 release schedule with that much content without paying developers money. That's just simply not how you run a constructive business, ladies and gentlemen. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, how dare you support Premium? You know, I hate Premium. I hate Season Passes. I think they're a bad part of video games. But at the same time, I play so much Battlefield 1 and play so much of the Season Passes that I can justify paying how much money I pay. Like, I could spend 300 hours on Battlefield 1 and then I'll go spend another 300 hours on Battlefield 1 DLC. So ultimately, if I paid £40 for both of those, I'm alright with that. I'm perfectly okay with paying that money because I've got a whole 600 hours out of 2 slots of content. Unfortunately, people are just going to have to accept this. You can't expect developers to make 4 or 5 maps, a couple of modes, 7 or 8 vehicles, 10 weapons, and, you know, all of these themes and new uniforms and new showcase scenery and new assets without giving them money to do so. It just doesn't make sense. It would be very crude for me to say, oh yeah, I paid £40, now go make me Battlefield 1.5. Because that's effectively what Premium is. It's giving us 4 different DLCs. The DLCs are giving us 4 or 5 different maps. Hell, the most recent one gave us 6. We've had night maps in between. We've had a hell of a lot of weapons so far. We have specializations and things like that coming, and new uniforms, thematic DLC, new tanks, new vehicles, new behemoths. It's just impossible to say that we've had all of this content and not give them money for Premium. And I personally feel very justified in paying for Premium. It just makes sense now. And as a result of that, I think we just have to come to the exception that if you expect this much content, it has to stay. And people always talk about Siege and other games, and they go, hey, this game doesn't have a season pass, and it has content. It's also riddled with microtransactions that suck, that absolutely suck. I would rather pay £40 for Premium, get all my maps, get all my content, get all my skins, get everything out of that pass, than have to offload, you know, loads of money on microtransactions so I can get 1 map every couple of months and 2 new operators. It's just not as interesting. It's not as fun. It's not enough content for a start because the Battlefield community expects a lot of content in comparison to the Siege community. And also, I wouldn't want to have to pay for skins in Battlefield 1. That sucks. I wouldn't want to have to pay for new uniforms or whatever. That just seems very downhill for Battlefield to head to. That's my 2 cents anyways. I'm sure lots of you might disagree with me on number 5 here, but personally I feel as though if you disagree with me, go get rid of it. If you have Premium, get rid of it. If you don't have Premium, don't buy it, and see how long you pay Battlefield 1 for. And if you've played it for a couple of 100 hours, then you got your money's worth. And if you're looking for a couple 100 more hours, get your money's worth and buy Premium. Anyways, that's just my ideas behind all of this. As always, folks, it's been me, TheTacticalBrit. Here are 5 things we've learned from Battlefield 1. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you again in the next video.